Oh, do the Eagles suck or what? Pure joy, never a doubt whatsoever. 16-1, here we come. Dallas 41 and Philadelphia 21. We could not have timed that one better. The Landry shift just occurred at Jerry World, and the Dallas Cowboys are leading the NFC least division with an amazing record of 2-1. Joined now by my bunkmate, Josh. Wow, what a freaking W that was, and all the better against the city with the worst fan base in all of professional sports. A win is a win, but a win against Philly is much better. Whoop, I lost you. You there? We did our test right before going live, and we had, whoop, do not have you. Is this thing on? Fun of live podcasting, folks. Which reminds me, I do have, that's not all bad because I have full faith in Josh because he is, what people don't know about him is he is a technical wizard and he will get things straightened out. But I do have to record on my own end. So that's not all bad on your end, Josh. So are you there? Not so much. We're doing great. We're doing absolutely great. The Cowboys 41 and Philadelphia 21. There you go. Just what you wanted to see with my big noggin. I got the haircut, though. Can't complain about that. The Cowboys dominating. You can communicate with us, and you can comment below on what you thought about this huge win for your America's team. Josh?
Can you hear me now?
I can. Live podcasting at its best. What do you think about the new graphics, by the way? We're upgrading. Your SOB friend Mitch is really stepping it up.
We look official. It's about time Mitch did something right.
Yeah, he's coming through. He's coming through. Well, let's break this one down. Since you had some goblins and gremlins there, your thoughts, always better to beat the team with the worst fan base in all of North America. The world, I dare say. A win is twice as nice against those miserable Philadelphia Eagles. What'd you think?
Yeah, there's nothing better as a Cowboy fan than beating the Eagles just because of the years of just them being Eagles fans. I used to have a roommate that you well know, and we had a few years there where yeah, Oski. Maybe one day he'll listen to it. But yeah, he was fine, but the rest of the Eagles fan base, maybe not so much. I think it goes back. I mean, it goes back a long way, but where it really started was the Michael Irvin injury, which they replayed on TV about 5 times a night during the show. So yeah, that's anything bad that happens to Eagles fans is okay with me.
Yeah, and it goes back to that for me too, among other ways, but just outside of being just bad sports fans, but not a bad win whatsoever. Cowboys had lost 7 straight primetime games coming into this one. They end that streak. They were without a bribing lineman, La'el Collins, with turns out there's a little more to the story, but it's fun to just kind of give you that overview that he tried to bribe somebody. And maybe we'll get into that later. It really expected to come back in a few games still, but Terrence Steele has been A-OK. And it was Dak's first home game since that gruesome injury that he had. That, oh, yeah, by the way, did you know that happened as they ran that ad nauseum? I was subjected to the national TV broadcast for a half as I had some day job work duties, so I had to speed up through the DVR to get to the my radio call as soon as I could with Brad and Babe. But how is this possible? It was the first Monday Night Football game between these two since 2008 against the hated Eagles. They had so many primetime games. I guess in the end, I'm kind of blurring Sunday games with Monday night games. I guess they played all those primetime ones, obviously, on Sunday night, because it seems like there had to have been 2 or 3 Monday night games at least between 2008 and now, but I guess not, huh?
That probably goes back to the days when Sunday night became the prime event as opposed to Monday night. So I'm sure that's what that comes down to. And Monday night didn't get the prime ones, and so they don't get the Cowboys and Eagles, which is even in a bad year, ratings are good for that. So I had no idea about that either. 2008's a long time. I remember I was in Texas Stadium for a Monday night game with the Eagles and Cowboys, and it was just an outright disaster. It was I don't even remember, but it was just so terrible. Like my sister walked out at some point. It was the game where McNabb had like 15 seconds to throw a pass, and
Oh yeah,
he hit Fred X for a long pass. I don't even know what I was still doing in there, but I was there, and golly, and that's part of my Eagle hatred too, being there in the stands with Eagle fans who threw beers at family members, and just it wasn't even that day. That was the Cowboys win the day they did that. But man, yeah, it started with Michael Irvin, and it went to when I was a season ticket holder, and Eagle fans would invade Cowboy Stadium, and they were the biggest garbage fan base
yeah.
ever, just because you would have to deal with everything else. Most other fans, you can deal with trash talking and all that, but with them, it went beyond that. And man, we shouldn't. I think we spent half the podcast so far talking about Eagles fans, which it really shouldn't be about. It should be about the Eagles fans crying tonight, which is nice. And surely most of them know, at least most of the competent ones know, they're not very good this year. And surprisingly, the Cowboys seem to at least be all right.
Mhm.
Maybe that's going out on a limb early on, but I don't even know where I started going off there.
Eagles fans, that'll throw you off.
That's pretty much it. Seeing red.
Their pain is our gain. And one final thought before we get started with the recap, and we toss the hot potato football back and forth. But outside of winning a Super Bowl, could you imagine a better 3-day span for Jerry Jones? Essentially, this isn't real, but come on. The reason that Texas A&M and Arkansas are playing at AT&T Stadium is because Jerry is one of the biggest boosters outside the Waltons for the Arkansas Razorbacks. So they stop A&M, and then he gets the win over the Eagles in Monday Night Football to show off the art collection in the stadium. So that could not have been a better 3-day stretch outside of maybe cramming in WrestleMania and some Mexican soccer match yesterday. That's the only thing that could have made it a lot better.
That is true. The Arkansas thing is huge for him. I know, because you're right. That is the only reason that game's held there. And I think it's changing here in a couple of years. I think they're going back to home and home. But between that and the Eagles and all the former Cowboys there tonight for the game, just perfect for him, because I know Jerry Jones loves his primetime spotlight, and he got it tonight. And for a change, like you said, I didn't realize how many straight games did you say they lost in primetime? 8?
It was 7. So they broke a
7.
7-game slide in
That's
the
amazing. And I'm sure like 4 or 5 of them were last year when the Cowboys were just terrible, and they kept on getting put in prime time because they don't take the Cowboys out of prime time often. Yeah. But yeah, that was it was nice for the other team to look like a disaster on prime time as opposed to the usual of us being like, here we go again.
Yeah, I should not gloat too much, although I have the Philly exception, those miserable sports fans. But I know our time is coming back around again too. But got off into kicking that or hitting that pinata of the Philly sports fans. Forgot to tell you that we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter live tonight. Look at us. We are social famous, but Texas Porch Pod on all those outlets. And 24/7, you can find us on the Mitch Design, thetexasporch.com. So here's your recap. And it was all Dallas early and often. Cowboys score on the first drive of the game. They go up 7-0. That was the Zeke score, correct? Like Zeke punched that one in for some reason. I did not note that here. Zeke got that first one. That's when I was zipping through. I was trying to catch up. But really quick, there would be more scores. Anthony Brown gets the pick, but then womp, 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 womp. 2 plays later, Big Fletcher Cox, grabs the Dak loose ball. I didn't see if they ruled that an interception or a fumble, but it started with that Hargrave pressure up the middle to kind of unsettle Dak there for a second, and then Philadelphia ties it up. And then the Cowboys have their third possession of the game in the first 5 minutes. There's a pass interference by Philadelphia, and then a big gain down to the 34. The next play, our guy Dalton Schultz gets absolutely rocked, but a couple plays later, Dak gets the ball inside the 10. Zeke got stopped. This was an early pivotal point of the game after Zeke got stopped short, just reaching for that pylon. He was obviously short, but then Dak is stuffed on 4th and inches. And it seemed that he had it too low and he didn't really get traction to get low enough. But what happened to that camera view where you could look right down the goal line? And one, it was a terrible call. I thought we were supposed to have this eye in the sky, this ultimate arbiter of officials. And that was a terrible call because it seemed like he did get over the double white stripe. But then are they saying that his momentum was stopped soon before he made that extra, second and third surge? That just seemed like a terrible sequence of events. It didn't end up mattering at all, but it just seemed like a terrible call at that point.
That was when I texted you seriously and you weren't watching the game yet. Like, it was a touchdown. I don't know how because they're supposed to be able to put together the pieces of information. And yeah, the sideline angle didn't show that it was, but the piecing it all together, it was obviously a touchdown. And I don't know where they go with that. I guess it's just the ultimate stay with the call on the field. And ultimately, it didn't hurt them because of what happened after the defense actually made the stop when it needed to. They went and scored a touchdown anyway. So it really didn't ultimately matter. But at the same time, how? I still don't know how that wasn't called a touchdown. But the guys on the TV, they said, yeah, probably shouldn't be overturned, and it wasn't overturned. So I guess it's just one of those things. I think the side judges are so inclined. You see it every day. You see it on your ice games. You see it in everything where you see the ball is obviously over the goal line. You see the person's 2 yards in the end zone, and they run in 20 yards and wait till they see the person right there in the end zone 2 yards past before they hold up their hands. And it's always just formality. And to not doing that was what cost them, because they went in and by then the ball was out of his hands and gone. And so they didn't call the touchdown because the guys can't make common sense calls and call a touchdown when it is. And so that ended up costing them. It really just delayed a touchdown because it didn't cost them a touchdown. It had nothing to do with it, but I still don't understand how you don't give that a touchdown.
And you've got 19 other massive humans there right in front of the middle of everything.
Yeah,
it's hard
it's from the side you can't see anything. But I thought whenever you showed the other view, it should have been obvious. But whatever, wasn't a big deal.
So Philly does take it back, and like you said, it doesn't matter, doesn't lead to points. Cowboys get the ball back near midfield, and our guy Dalton Schultz gets the 19-yard touchdown as Dallas goes ahead to stay ahead, 14-7. 131 of the first quarter. Liking this rhythm, again, the third straight game of outstanding first half play calling by Kellen Moore. Very aggressive in changing things up. Each game has had a different dynamic from the other. And Philadelphia punts, but then Zeke and my guy, I don't know if you've claimed him yet, but my guy, big game Tony P, take over Pollard. The O-line just absolutely dominates. Don't want to get ahead because we're not even a fourth of the way through the season yet, even after next week's game against Carolina. But this offensive line is outstanding in the early stages of this season. But they have a hold near the 10, but that pushes in back. But the that Pablo audible, that the one good thing I did hear on that ESPN broadcast, which it seemed a little too busy. I know this. It doesn't matter really because they're still great and they're pros and they're fine announcers, but they picked up on that really quick that, hey, this is going to be a draw. So Zeke gets that draw, and Zeke, he goes down to the 3. Then he gets that touchdown back that he wanted to get earlier in that game. Philadelphia punts. They play hot potato. They give the ball right back. Then Dallas punts for the first time. At this point, by the way, it's about midway through that second quarter. and the leg had missed that extra point in there. But Dak at this point, very efficient, had another very solid game. He was 13 of 14 at this point, halfway through the second quarter. And Philly gives the ball back on a punt. They just could not do anything right early going, and that set the tone. But then Cedric Wilson had that amazing catch where he was kind of doing the David Tyree, holding it against his ear hole on the sideline after Dak had whipped it across the body from his hip. Just an amazing catch that would have been a catch at their previous level in college. But it doesn't end up mattering. The next drive, Osa Odigizua for the Cowboys. I think that might have been the first time we heard his name on a sack this season. He thwarts an Eagles drive. Randy Gregory gets held on one drive. And nearing the end of the first half, the Eagles just barely, little dump out pass to Devontae Smith. They barely get over 100 yards. Dallas had 262 close to the end of the first half. But for some reason, Dallas doesn't use a timeout to stop the clock. And maybe it's understandable if Dallas gets the ball to start the second half, but that was a weird sequence. So what were you thinking about all those things happening towards the end of the second quarter? And I was wondering why they didn't call it. Of course, it didn't end up mattering, but they didn't call that timeout. And I'm going to plug my computer in so we don't go off here.
I had no idea what they were doing there at the end of the first half when it was, because I think it was a second and 31. And it's like you obviously call the timeouts to get the ball back. And the Eagles got, I don't know, 10, 15 yards on the second down play, and they didn't call timeout. And then they got a few more yards on third down. They still didn't call the timeout. It was like, it's almost like whenever you're a team that's not expecting to win, you're up a couple touchdowns and you just let it go to half because you're doing a lot better than you thought. So you're not going to screw it up right before half. That's exactly what it felt like. But I thought coming in that the Cowboys were obviously the better team. I thought throughout the first half, they showed they were obviously the better team. I thought right there they had a chance to get a timeout and go kick a field goal or even get a touchdown because Dak's shown the last 3 weeks, well, his career, but predominantly the last 3 weeks, that he can use that little time to go get points. And it was totally like they didn't expect to be in that position. And so I have no idea what they were thinking there. Other than they were happy being up 2 touchdowns. They knew the Eagles weren't too much of a threat. So even looking back on it, I still don't have any idea why they didn't try to go, as they say, for the jugular right there and just go take them out. But like you said, it didn't really matter. Although, you know, certain games you want to get that. Like I still don't know. I don't agree with it. But I guess as Parcell says, it is what it is.
Yeah, and you are what your record says you are at this point, Dallas leading the division. But we all know nothing matters in this organization. This or at least my sports fandom, nothing matters. You at least have something to watch come October in more ways than one. But so at the break, maybe we'll save that for an Astros podcast later. Them cheating Stros. But so 20-7 Dallas at the break. The biggest halftime lead in a season and a half. And now, Josh, I am caught up on DVR, and it's popcorn time, baby. Third quarter, I get synced up with Brad and Babe for the true broadcast. And, it got so much better. I mean, I'm going to save that comment for later because something just kind of formed in my head. But this play, I'll just say it. This play reminded me of years gone by when this organization was actually run well and heading in the right direction and going deep into the playoffs, wink, wink. But Bama on Bama on Bama crime when Trayvon Diggs picks off his third pass of the season and goes to the house, no less, and his former Bama teammate Jalen Hurts threw it, and he got it when Devontae Smith slipped, but I think he still would have gotten it anyway. But how about this? Diggs becomes the first Cowboy since impromptu trivia, Josh Havard, because I don't think I was watching the game, obviously, but I don't think they put this graphic. It's one of the many reasons I like listening to the Cowboys radio call, but in one, I'm a big nerd. But the last Cowboy to pick off a pass in each of the first 3 games of a season was who? It's a name you know. It's not some fourth string defensive back from Albany or anything.
You want to give me a time frame?
Our
Or is that too
lifetime,
much? Our lifetime. So, Charles Woodson,
Darren Woodson.
Dion,
Yeah, Charles Woodson. I don't
Darren
remember
Woodson,
him
not
playing,
Charles
but yeah,
Woodson.
yeah.
No,
No,
he
it was
didn't.
Everson Walls in his
Everson,
Cowboys.
yeah, I would not have guessed that, but
Yeah,
that
yeah. I wouldn't either. I'm not trying to sound smart just because I had the stat, but the last Cowboy to pick off a pass in each of the first three games. That was the third highest. The most was 5. Charlie Watts, one of the 2 guys that's picked off a pass in 5 consecutive games. But Dallas, 27-7, less than a minute into the third quarter, they are rolling. Philly gives it back 8 straight possessions. I mistyped this. 8 straight possessions. All possessions for them were either a punt or an interception, and the latter interception being one that they took to the house. But Dallas, wake me up, John, or don't wake me up, okay? Dallas, through 3 games, leads the NFL in takeaways. That was our 8th takeaway of the season, and just through 3 games, but still, that says something with what Dan Quinn has done. I'm not calling it this overnight miracle project again because we're only 3/17 away through the season, Mr. Math. You can break down that fraction in a bit. But man, me likey taking the ball away from other teams. Dan Quinn has been an amazing, not saying the word miracle worker, but he has been an amazing guy to get a reclamation project for this Dallas defense. And that Trayvon Diggs pick, watching it now on the replay again, that made my Cowboys heart tingle there. That made me very happy.
well, this defense, that's what they need because we've talked about it probably after every game this year. Well, there's only been 2 before this, but they need to get some turnovers. They need to make some stops close to goal line, need to force some field goals, and uh, plays like that. My late uncle, he used to call them bonus cookies. Like you
Yeah.
just, that's exactly, I mean, that's what it is. If you get plays like that from this defense, then all of a sudden you're on an even playing ground with teams that have defenses that you just expect things like that from. So that was huge, and winning the turnover battle, it's such a huge deal. I know that stat goes back years for NFL teams. If you win the turnover battle, of course, the teams that are good usually win the turnover battle because they're the ones running the ball. They're the ones that have the lead. The other teams are the ones that are desperate in doing that, and that's kind of what it was tonight, where the Eagles knew that they needed to do something special. And Diggs, who was just great for pretty much the whole night, went out there, made a play. That was whenever, because that drive right there is whenever you're thinking the Eagles, they go down and score a touchdown. It's back to 1 possession game. As opposed to that, they go three possession for the Cowboys. At that point, if the Cowboys don't really screw up, which we've seen them do plenty of times before, then they're probably going to win the game. Just the way they're playing tonight, that felt like that was the kill shot. Like that was the one that took it away.
Yeah, 27-7. And after a Dallas punt, Philly marches down. The Zach Ertz drive, their last drive that really looked productive. But 2 other catches on the 90-yard drive. Dallas 27-14. About halfway through the third quarter. And even, you're right. You're exactly right. That was the big death blow. But it's still a game. It was still a contest at that point. And the Cowboys got the ball back. They didn't do anything. It made you go like, okay, I still 90% sure they're going to win this game. But 4:02 the third quarter ends with Dallas driving. The third quarter ends. The Cowboys held in the last 4 minutes of that third stanza. That third quarter did go by pretty quick. But 4th and goal at the 3. And yeah, buddy, Cedric Wilson, back of the end zone, puts Dallas up 34-14. And then later, Jay Novacek, apparently reincarnated for this game at least, my guy, Dalton Schultz, a 22-yard touchdown catch, his second. Dallas 41-14. And they would go on to win that one 41-21. And first place, Dallas Cowboys. It might not last that way, but in this puny division, it might actually last that way because they're the only team right now with an above 500 record. And we'll get to some stats in just a bit, but they dominated every category, and they're proving over these 3 games, that's a large enough sample size that they've got some punch on offense, they've got some punch on defense, and the only thing holding them back is a wacky and mad scientist, Bones Fossil, in special teams from stopping me saying that they're a fantastic special teams unit because, I mean, Zerline cost them the first game. Not all his fault, again, but they've still had some questionable things from Bones Fossil, but he didn't really do that the last part of last week's game and this game. So they've kind of put oven mitts on him and kept the sharp objects away from him. But Mike McCarthy still kind of trying to do Mike McCarthy things and get in the way of a game. But overall, you have to be really, really happy with 41-21, especially against those ne'er-do-wells from the Northeast.
Yeah, I was thinking throughout the game tonight that the Eagles are probably, I don't know, they're not good, but they're definitely, the Giants are terrible. The Giants are 0-3, and they just lost to the Falcons, who might be one of the worst teams in the league. The Washington football team, I almost said the other one, but they're not all that good. Like, it's going to take something bad for the Cowboys not to win the division. And we saw it last year, although last year they didn't, even when Dak was healthy, they weren't very good. This year, I don't know what they figured out because it's a lot of the same guys. I don't see just a vast change of the roster, although they did go with the draft to picking all the defensive guys. But, you know, NFL things change week by week. But as of now, I don't see how they're not why they shouldn't win this division by about 3 or 4 games. Like, you know, I mean, that would be going 10-7 because I don't think anybody else in the division is going to do anything. But, you know, if they can stay the course, stay healthy, just from what I've seen from the last 3 weeks, and I'm not the one that just goes crazy and say, yeah, Super Bowl bound, because they've still got their problems and they'll still have their issues against good teams. But this is a game that they should have taken care of, and they did take care of. You know, that's a novel concept of what we've seen with the Cowboys the last few years. Because
what's that like?
Yeah, it's, you know, we've had the running joke from the taco joint that we've talked about that games like this are the ones where, you know, they should win. You know, they should be up 14 by halftime. And I text you 7 minutes into the game to say, well, we're down 17-0 for some reason. So maybe they've got a few things figured out and maybe they can keep going with it. But overall, the offense, I think the offense should be good. Like, there's no reason that it shouldn't be good as long as they're healthy. And the defense has been competent, and they've been getting some turnovers to go along with it. So you hate to get too optimistic after 3 games of an NFL season, but they legitimately should be good.
Yeah, and we just wait for Lucy to pull that football away from Charlie Brown because we're scarred the last 25 years in our fandom. But you nailed it on the defense. And my other highlight before we break down a few of the stats is that the sprinkling of Zeke, and we saw a more confident Zeke. I guess it's Brian Greasy, right? I know it's Steve Levy, who looks like the former SID at SFA, James Dixon, now at Lamar. I can't get those two separated from births apart from each other. But also, who's the third guy in the booth? I'm blanking on the third guy in the booth. I'm spending too much time on this. But the third guy on the booth was saying that Zeke was hearing the chatter about Tony Pollard playing so well. Well, good. I'm glad he was, because that, if that indeed was the truth, that was a kick in the saddle where he really performed well. And we'll get to the full stats in a bit, but not even looking at the stats, just watching the game, Zeke ran hard. He ran motivated, and they sprinkled in Pollard, and just the smooth way Pollard glides, and they were right on the broadcast, just the different dimension and X factor that he gives them. It's a great combination, and you don't want to get too out ahead of yourself. And combined with the efficiency of Dak, over the top CD Lamb, and my gosh, Dalton Schultz. We haven't seen too much from Blake Jarwin this year, but it's a good mixture that the Cowboys have had, and I credit Kellen Moore to that. And you have to give Mike McCarthy credit because he's gotten out of the way of Moore, but they've looked like a very balanced team offensively. And when you combine that with their ball hawking ability, never thought I'd be saying that, even in Dan Quinn's first year, That makes a good recipe. What do you say we go to some numbers? You see any of these stats? Dak, very efficient, 238 yards passing. He threw for, we do have some of those on the scroll too, producing on the fly. But Zach, 238 yards passing, most of those in the first half, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Not comparing the two quarterbacks because above anybody, Josh, I would never lump Dak into the same book with Troy Aikman, much less the same sentence, but that was the type of game Troy would have and why his numbers were so small throughout his career because they get the early lead and then they just pound the ball, and be able to run the ball a lot. But Dak was great. 21 of 26 for 238. Zeke, 17 carries for 95 yards. Tony Pollard chipped in 11 carries for 60 yards. And by the way, Zeke had 2 touchdowns. And you know what? I didn't think Hurts was that terrible. He had a couple of flutter balls that got away. That wide open one, was it to Dallas Goedert or Zach Ertz? But he's not terrible. I mean, he sounds like he's a great guy and doesn't fit for being in Philadelphia. But I guess I can say that for Carson Wentz too. Apparently, he was kind of a turd in the locker room, but he wasn't terrible. I mean, he hit some deep balls, but overall, I know I've stepped all over you here, but Hurts went 326 yards, but he threw those 2 costly picks, and didn't have much rushing behind him either. But all in all, the big stat is the W.
Hurts is bad enough. Like, the numbers can say something. That's what you've always said about Dak for years. He was pretty decent throughout the game, but also he threw the pick 6. He missed wide open. I forget like you did, Ertz or somebody that would have been a 40-yard play. I was texting with my sister throughout the game, and Hurts seems like what would be ideal for him is being the Parcells bus driver type, like don't make mistakes, go out there and do what you do, like he did at Alabama. That's pretty much what he was.
A Quincy Carter recipe there. Not the same quarterback, but yeah.
Yeah, before Tua took over at Alabama, it's go out there, don't make mistakes. And the Eagles aren't good enough to have a quarterback like that, so they're going to ask him to do too much, and that's just not the kind he is. He's not like why am I drawing a blank on his name? Herbert for the Chargers last week. He's not not Dak. He's not those guys that can go over and take over a game. So the Eagles, to have a quarterback like him, they need players around him that allow him not to take over a game, allow him to make his plays, which I think is what showed throughout the night, besides the mistakes that he made. But until they get a better roster around him, he's not the type of quarterback that they need. And they're a long way away from having a really good roster outside of that. So just in another bashing Eagle sense, I know what you're saying about that. He looked pretty good. His numbers, 335 yards. That's good. But at the same time, despite Dak having 100 less passing yards, I don't think anybody that watched the game, biased or not, Eagles crazy fans or not, would say that he's anywhere close to what Dak is. And on the other end, the Cowboys had those stats that you mentioned. That's ideal for the Cowboys. Dak throwing for 235 yards. The running backs going for 95 and 60, I think, is what you said. That's a perfect Cowboys game if you can do it, which is a night they could do it tonight, where just offensive line blowing up holes for the running backs. Just so many 7 and 8 yard runs right there on first down that just keeps you going the whole night. And from a Cowboys perspective, it's not always going to be that easy because there's going to be a lot better defenses they see than the Eagles. But I thought tonight was a perfect game plan with what you'd said, with the perfectly timed play action to a tight end, along with everything else that they had going.
Yeah, they held the ball for about 35 minutes. Dallas, that is. They had twice as many first downs, 27-13, compared to the struggling Eagles. Dallas was 50% on third down, 6 of 12. Philly was 3 of 11. Don't mind that at all. And the total net yards were virtually even, 380 for the Pokes and 367 for them struggling Eagles. And Philadelphia actually had more passing yards on the net, of course, as they were coming back. But Philadelphia commit some penalties on you. They had 13 penalties in that game, most of those in the first half, and the game was still in deciding. They turned it over twice. Dallas turned it over once. But all right, Josh, that'll do it. We're over our time. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. We will be back next Sunday. The Cowboys have a short rest taking on the Carolina Panthers. And Matt Rule, who I thought should have at least been considered or interviewed for the Cowboys job when it was open. But Jerry had his mind made up, and he was going to get Mike McCarthy one way or another. So, yeah, well-coached team. You have a decent quarterback now in Sam Darnold and a pretty sturdy defense. They've really got that defense playing better. So we have we get to see what the other NFL fan bases live like and have a noon game for a change. We haven't had one of those yet. So any
That's
final
pretty
thought?
rare. Pretty rare. 12 o'clock game for the Cowboys. No Christian McCaffrey next week for the Panthers, but he's got them 3-0 with a roster that I don't think is very good. Like, Cowboys might still be better off if they had Rule. That'd be a conversation for another day because the night was pretty smooth all around. But I don't know. Like what I saw, I guess the Cowboys be a pretty decent favorite without McCaffrey and coming off this game tonight. And so 12 o'clock Sunday game, they usually have about 4 or 5 a year for that. So back at home, the 3 straight home games, maybe they can take care of that. Put some distance between themselves and the Eagles, Redskins, Giants, which they weren't able to do last year. Whenever those teams were just terrible at the start, and the Cowboys were terrible as well. So just stack up those wins, and I think if they get a 3-game lead on any of those teams, I don't think that any of those are going to make a real run at the Cowboys when the schedule gets a little bit tougher with the Chiefs and everybody else down the line. So just keep on keeping on.
All set to break our heart in the playoffs after getting that big divisional lead. But that'll do it. And a tease for next week, you'll get the status and wonder why I am driving an hour and a half to get my dogs groomed during the Cowboys game next week. So we'll see when the podcast will come. Will it be live right after or deep into the night? Who knows? But yeah, so that's the life I'm living now here, driving back up into East Texas from Houston to get the puppies. But all right, Josh, we've gone over time enough, but thank you for your fine podcast services for America's team, the Dallas Football Cowboys.
That's fun. Feel free to drop on by whenever. Well, I don't know if you can bring dogs in the house. That's another story. But
yeah, and I might see you Friday, so we'll get some.
Yeah, you'll see me on Friday. We're gonna. I think we decided we're having dinner. You, me, and my dad.
So Josh has spurned me for my Rice invitation, but I'll get to see some high school football on Friday night down the road. That's your Cowboys podcast live on YouTube and Facebook after each and every Cowboys game, maybe except the Panthers game when I'm getting dogs groomed. But anyway, we are back, and you can find us on any of the popular podcast outlets as well. Archive shows on the Mitch Design, the TexasPorch.com. Have a great rest of this night. God bless you. God bless Texas. And we'll talk to you next time out here on the Texas Porch. Stick it, Eagles.